Good afternoon to you. Mark Stott of HurricaneTrack.com here with your hurricane outlook and discussion for Friday, August 23rd, 2019. All of a sudden, we have plenty to talk about, and you heard it here that we thought that was going to happen. That's all I'm going to say. That never doubt climatology in most hurricane seasons, especially when you don't have an El Nino in the Pacific. The Atlantic is not running colder than average overall. There are other mitigating factors, the sinking air, etc., that has helped to keep August quiet until now. But remember, and I do this a lot, I talk sports and hurricanes as analogies with each other. In the same setting that a basketball game, a college game, for example, has 40 minutes, it's 20 minutes and a half. There are 31 days on the calendar in August every year. And even though all the way up until August whatever was quiet, doesn't always mean that until the end of August it will remain quiet. And just like basketball, yes, there are some deficits that cannot be overcome. If there are 2 minutes left on the clock and your team that you are pulling for is down, by 14 points or whatever, and in some cases it can just be double digits and that's all you need. I don't know, 14 is a double digit, but I'm just saying it could be 10, 14, whatever. Anything under that, you never know. But yeah, sometimes you do see the writing on the wall once it gets close to the end of the clock running out. But while we are watching the tropics, you have to remember that climatology, the ability of the Atlantic basin, or any basin for that matter, but specifically the Atlantic, where the variability from year to year is the most difficult to predict overall. You never count out climatology when all other things being generally favorable, or most other things, would tend to argue for things to get busy. Here's the results of that. Things are indeed getting busy. So there's my intro. I should do like one of those Netflix shows where you can click skip intro. All right, but hopefully you learned something. That we thought that it was going to get busy. It's not like I'm some know-it-all. We're just looking at the overall pattern, and it strongly suggested that things would get busy. It's not like I am the only person in the world who saw this coming. That's certainly not the case. And here it is. And look at where it is. For the most part, the Western Pacific, wow, that's just pathetic. Let me get a better line here. I forgot to do that. In the Western Pacific, things have calmed down for the most part. There's one tropical storm over here that will go through the southern part of Taiwan. Bailu, I think it's its name. And then something like that, Bailu, and then up into eastern China. The rest of the activity, is over here in the Atlantic. And we haven't even entered that period of less sinking motion. This is happening despite still generally unfavorable conditions on a wide scale. Now, we do have these pockets where things are going to try to get more favorable. One of them is through here. One of them is going to be right around here. And we had a little zone that was, up through here and then down this way where Chantal formed. But even the eastern Pacific outside of Evo, not much is happening there. It's all in the Atlantic right now. And getting ready to become more robust. All right? So here's what we have. Real quick, a stop in the Eastern Pacific with Evo. This system, don't worry much about it. Only 30% chance of development, so no issues for Hawaii. Evo here, 992 millibars, trying to make it to hurricane intensity, but I don't think it's going to have time. You never know. It might, and it'll die out over the colder water and more stable air mass to its north-northwest. Some high clouds, maybe some mid-level moisture, if you're lucky, could get strung out to the north and east over portions of northwest Mexico, and maybe hints of a little bit of a monsoonal surge up this way to bring some precip into extreme southern Arizona, but I doubt it makes it as far north as Phoenix, as an example. All right, so back to the Hurricane Center homepage. Now in the Atlantic, there's Chantal. It's just a depression. I'll show you that on a satellite picture in a moment. Then we have Invest Area 98L, which is now basically a 9 out of 10 shot at developing. 90% chance of developing over the next 5 days. and we have 99L. And this one is really, really interesting because only the GFS saw it coming. And remember, we were looking at it, and it was like, well, I don't know if that's coming out of the monsoon trough, if it's just... I didn't pay it much attention because there was not much other model support, and you just never know. We do like to see what we call model consensus, and we weren't really getting that. But that just goes to show you that even in that short-term to long-term time frame, 3 to 5 days, 5 to 7 days, 7 to 15 days, depending on what block you look at, you just never know. And the models are not doing as well this year in that longer time frame. It seems to be that we're not seeing that cyclogenesis, that's what we call it, tropical cyclogenesis, fancy way of saying the birth of tropical cyclones. We're not seeing that as much in the day 8 and beyond time frame. For those of you that have been following this for enough time, you remember when we would see people, I think it was Dr. Ryan Maui, who now works over at the Weather Models site, tweeted something about it's a good thing that we don't live in the world of day 8 and beyond models. Like, if everything developed that was shown after day 8 or day 10 came to fruition and hit land, nobody could live along the coast. There was this, a couple times I've seen him mention that. I think it was Dr. Maui. And that's true. We would see that where the convective feedback, the model picking up on that heat in the tropics and then just kind of running rampant with it like a wild fever, and you would get all these tropical cyclones developing in the longer range. Usually it was the GFS or the Canadian, not so much the European, although it has had its problems over the years. Now it seems it's more restrictive, and we're seeing these in the 5 to 7 day time frame or less. And that could be concerning when you're wanting to plan things out ahead of time, especially if something were to pop up closer to the islands, closer to the Greater Antilles, or closer to, and it generally won't happen up here, but closer to these land masses, as an example. And I think Michael last year is a little bit of an example of that limitation, that the global models were pretty good at showing this Central American gyre over here, and something would come out of it, like we saw with Nate in 2017, but none of them were suggesting conditions would be favorable in this area through here for a Category 5 hurricane. And that's a very small area of the ocean and the atmosphere. So how would they get that right? Right? So, I don't know, it's just interesting. And so here we are. We look at the board. All right, we talk about players. Well, there's my, I know X's and O's are typically in football, but I mean, I guess you can use them in basketball on the old drawing board there that you see the different coaches use. Here's your O for Chantal, a depression, and here's an X that's orange, and here's an X that's red. These are probably going to develop, both of these systems. If we look at the 5-day graphical, you see the general direction that they should take. Overall, 98L, maybe the circulation and some storminess comes over the southern peninsula and then comes offshore. And because a front is going to come down and the steering flow around that is this way, it's going to turn out to sea almost certainly. But I am also, I am confident, getting ahead of myself here, that this will become a hurricane somewhere in this vicinity. Fairly close to shore, that the rip currents are going to be a big deal, and we can talk about that in a moment because I will address impacts. Speaking of impacts, this system, 99L, and remember real quick in case you're brand new to this or new enough that you haven't heard it before, what does a 99L mean? It's just the numbering system. They use the numbers 90 through 99 at the National Hurricane Center, the letter L for Atlantic, ATL, right, Atlantic, and it's actually AL 90, but we call it in the weather world Invest 90L. And they use those over again, 90, 91, 92, 93, so forth, 99, and then back to 90. And it's just a way to say, okay, instead of this red area and that orange area, all right, well, this one we're going to call 98L, because it's Atlantic, and this one is 99L. And if we have, another one that comes off Africa in a few days, that one would be called 90L. And it's a way to keep up with what's what, assign resources, computer modeling specific to those areas, and task recon to them, etc. It's just a way to keep things organized for the most part. That's the simplest way to explain it. All right, so those are the players. Let's look at the vorticity signature from yesterday, because this is really fascinating to me. This is yesterday, and let's use the color white to select what's what. Watch this area through here, and watch this area through here. All right, so that's yesterday. Here's today. Oh, look at that. Just 24 hours later. I mean, this is what gets me so excited about watching the tropics. It's the mystery of it all. It's not the excitement that people's lives can be destroyed. Of course not. Why would I be that way? Nobody is that way. Even people that are extremely passionate that they want to see a hurricane, they are not wanting people's lives to be destroyed. They just don't understand. I get that. But I am utterly just taken aback. And it seems very simple. But when you go and you look at this, that was yesterday. When I've screwed this all up. There we go. See, my excitement messed me up. That was yesterday. This is today. And, it's simple enough, what I was getting at. That, oh, yeah, it's just a day later and these things are increasing. But look at how the energy, and that's what we're looking at here, the spin in the atmosphere, the vorticity of the atmosphere, increased in just about 24 hours. And that's the telltale sign that I've talked about. Let's look for that and see what happens with it. And that's your peer under the hood. You lift up the hood, you look under there, you're peering under the hood of the cloud cover of the Atlantic Basin to see what's happening. And this is what's happening. You've got these systems now, much more concentrated here near Florida. And boy, aren't we lucky that this didn't go ahead and develop in the Bahamas. That could have been a real nightmare. You get even a Cat 1 hurricane strengthening in those population centers. Think about Katrina 14 years ago. It did that. Luckily, this did not. And then this system out here, that's a fairly low latitude, but there it is. So we are seeing the signs come to life in just 24 hours. That's pretty remarkable. All right. In the Eastern Pacific, there's Evo. Not much to talk about with it. A little bit of a flare-up of activity in the Gulf of Mexico. And you know what? It won't shock me at this point if that goes on to try to develop its own vorticity signature of a greater magnitude before finally coming in to portions of the Northwest Gulf up here. I don't think it'll ramp up quickly, but it'll certainly bring a lot of rain to that area, so be ready for that. And then down here is 98L, and then out over in the tropical Atlantic invest area, 99L. And let's get rid of this. We'll go to that. So a wider shot of the Atlantic Basin. There's the circulation left over from Chantal. Neat, no big deal, whatever. Energy in the Gulf of Mexico bears watching. If for no other reason, again, a lot of rainfall along the I-10 corridor and vicinity. And then down here, speaking of vicinity, the tropical wave and overall low pressure area, weak low pressure area near southeast Florida. That should become a tropical storm and eventually a hurricane before too long. Now, why won't this just go on into the Gulf and become a problem over there? Put a question mark there. Why won't that happen? Well, the steering pattern, and you can see that here for the most part, generally the flow is this way. And you can see that. I don't even have to show you upper level winds on a meteorological chart. Like an upper air chart or the GFS or a model. Just look. So there's a little bit of ridging still down here, but not enough, because this energy in the upper atmosphere is going to come and erode that ridge away, lowering the heights to the north, allowing this to move in that direction. They're going to move in the direction of least resistance, similar to a balloon floating along your ceiling. If you have a helium balloon and it's just floating along the ceiling, and then you have a skylight and it goes up into the skylight. Well, there's no ceiling there, so it goes up more. Does that make sense? And these tropical cyclones are very similar. that they go along and they're pressed south by that high pressure. That's why they call it high pressure. But when you lower those heights in the atmosphere, you lower the influence of that big mountain of air. And in this case, that's the big old Bermuda High that sits out here. And you erode that away just a little bit, then these tropical systems can gain some latitude, and out to sea they go, caught up in the flow that's southwest to northeast overall of this frontal system coming through. Now, that being said, I do want to talk impacts real quick for you folks along the coast. Showers, thunderstorms, gusty winds for the Bahamas, Florida, parts of Florida, absolutely. As this turns the corner and starts to develop as it heads out, there will be additional energy input into the ocean here, and that energy will make its way along the coast, all the way up from Georgia to the Carolinas, and eventually the south-facing beaches of New England and Atlantic Canada. So that'll be days away, and I'm going to talk about it because I don't want people dying. I don't. I mean, if you die, you can't watch these videos. And what good is me being here if there's nobody watching these videos, right? I care. And it's more than that. I know what's coming. This thing's probably going to become a hurricane. I can feel it. You just get that. The models show it, and it's that time of year. It's coming. And it's going to generate waves. The surf community, you guys are going to love this. But it's going to create rip currents. You still have enough people headed to the beach because what's coming up soon? Labor Day weekend, right? And this is going to be turning that corner slow enough that there will be some residual wave action as people head to the beach. Luckily, it's not further along in the calendar, and we're closer to Labor Day weekend because this could be a real problem, literally a death trap, because it's going to be a hurricane. I'm almost certain of it, and it's going to generate waves. So be ready for that. Both on the positive side for surfers, great. And that's actually good for the economy. People come down, they buy hotel rooms, they spend money eating, filling up the gas tank, etc. Unless they drive a Tesla, and then they use a supercharger, something I learned from Ron and his family over the past few days, but I digress. It's true, though. The surfing community does get excited about these, but you have to be careful. Now, this system. This is really interesting, and let me show you beyond the obvious why I think this is really interesting. This is the total precipitable water. Long time friend of ours at HurricaneTrack, Delaware Steve, as we call him, tweeted this to me on Twitter, so I picked it up and put it in as the link, and I want to show you the latest version of it. Thank you, Steve, for bringing this to my attention today. This is the precipitable water in the atmosphere, so all of this through here is your water vapor, shows up pretty good. And then all these blues and purples and whatnot, that's drier air. Less to almost no precipitable water in some cases in the atmosphere. So watch as I put this into motion. Look at this. There's the energy right there that comes off, and you can track it back to here. But watch as this comes through and get that little wake behind it, so to speak. It's just so neat how this fluid dynamics works. You see it coming across there. Right? There it is. And then right there towards the end of the animation, it curls up at the back end of it. And I'm going to get this to animate again. I'm going to bring me back on. I want to show you something. At least try to. It reminds me, if you're in a pool, and you take your hand and you go across the water like that, and you're in the water, and you move your hand through the water, and at the back end, after you go through, it makes that little eddy. Do it if you have a pool, or get in the bathtub. Take a bath. Mark said take a bath. Go for it. Move your hand through the water, and it creates that little spin behind there. I know because I've seen it. It's just a weather geek, man. I see weather in all sorts of things, and in a pool, it's a microcosm compared to the larger atmosphere, but the atmosphere is fluid. And so look at that surge of energy that comes through there. Right there it is. You can track it. And then right behind it, it kind of whips up that little spin. I don't know if they are related exactly, whatever, but it is truly fascinating to me to see that. Now, what does it represent? Well, let's let it stop here real quick. One more time. No, it's done. Oh, there it is. Sorry. It represents moisture and energy in the atmosphere. And you see it's not very large. Look at that one coming off. Talk about a tropical wave. I mean, that looks like a wave of low pressure, doesn't it? Absolutely. And you can also see the energy that will eventually beget this tropical system. Now just focus on this area for a moment. Watch how that curls up as it gets close to Florida. See? I mean, it even has the spiral look to it. The overall moisture is curling around. There's your energy. So we're going to have probably two systems, almost certainly. And maybe, if this gets going, it's a little bit more dry air involved there. It's a higher amplitude wave, so it's going to take more to feed it. We may have three systems. What about the Gulf? Any indication of spin there? Not much, luckily. But a pretty big surge of moisture coming up into that area. All right? So, moving on along here. I was over at Storm 2K, the website, and noticing on their models thread about 99L, and I'm specifically talking about 99L right now. The intensity guidance, this was right out of the gate, so don't pay too much attention to it yet, except that it's not wishy-washy where some are over here and some are down here and there's a couple up here. No, that's not it. They're all up. So that gets my attention a little bit, not quite yet enough to really ring the alarm bells, unless you scroll down and look at the ship's diagnostic data. And I know you're like, Mark, what are you talking about? Move me over here for a minute. SHIPS is the Statistical Hurricane Intensity Prediction Scheme, and that's all about the intensity part. And there's all these parameters, as you can see, in the... hang on, I have a message I need to read. All right, good. Just trying to make sure. These are all the different parameters. How close is it to land? The upper ocean heat content, the shear, the moisture, its forward speed. All these parameters are tucked into that little nugget of information that we call this tabular data here, this table. So what's interesting to me, and they have highlighted it here on the Storm 2K post, thank you, the ship's probability for rapid intensification of 55 knots at 48 hours, or in 48 hours, is 13%. That's low. Yeah. But it's 2.8 times the mean, the average, right? That's 2.8 times higher than the climatological mean. Now that should get your attention, okay? So we'll be watching that closely, and you can find this on various sites. I'll put a link to the real-time analysis site that they have from UCAR. So I'm going to just pull that up real quick, kind of show you what that looks like. Yeah, there it is, ral.ucar.edu, and then I know I should bookmark these things, but they're just sitting there. Pretty much the only sites I go to. There you go. So you click on it, and you can look at the ship's diagnostics. Somewhere in here they've added, there it is, ship's diagnostic message. It's all right here. All right, and let's see if the actual 18Z, yeah, the 18Z came out while we were doing this. Cool. So we'll just show this real quick. There's the guidance, very limited. Yeah, these are the simple numeric models, not much of your advanced 3D global models or whatever. And you can see there's not many of the models over here. This is all for track, by the way. Real time here, literally seeing all this as it happens. And then looking at the latest intensity guidance. So remember what it showed earlier. Same thing. So the 18Z guidance, nope, sorry, that's still 12Z. My fault. That hasn't updated yet. Never mind, as they say. Nevertheless, right up there is the ship's diagnostic message, and you would scroll down, and you can read. That's what they were highlighting there in Storm 2K. This is from the 12Z guidance. This will update soon. I encourage you to read it, check it out. That's the URL, hurricanes.ral. I'll put it in the description. Let's just move on, shall we? Why? Why would it intensify quickly? Well, upper ocean heat content. Ding! Definitely high enough. Plenty of energy available. Is the dry air going to be a factor? The sinking in the atmosphere going to be a factor? We'll just have to see about that. Not much in the way of weather balloon launches going on out there, what we call soundings. A few planes fly through at high altitude. You get some information from them, but otherwise, This is a pretty data void area. So we'll have to see. The models have a little bit of a hard time out there because there's not much ground-based upper air data from the ground up, because that's all ocean. Elsewhere, absolutely, upper ocean heat content, no problem there, plenty of fuel. So folks, it is time to really start paying attention, because it's just August 23rd, and we're going to have 2 named storms almost certainly within the next few days. Maybe even 2 of those 2 becoming hurricanes. And then all of a sudden, August could be above normal. How about that? Yeah, it just goes to show. I keep emphasizing that because I saw a lot of people, oh man, season's not going to do anything. And it could have, but here we go. So the European model, speaking of global models, this is just one of the models. Okay, this is the operational model. This is like the head conductor of the orchestra, if you will, and all of the members of the orchestra make up the ensemble, literally. And in that analogy, that works perfect. And so this is like the lead, all right, the operational. And this is 850 millibars in the atmosphere. The atmosphere is made up of layers. We're looking at about 5,000 feet up, and it's what we call cyclonic vorticity, the spin in the atmosphere, the energy that's, in this case, we're looking to see if it is trying to bundle. And where are we looking? Well, that's 98L, that's 99L. Those are the features I want you to watch. This is the initial map, and this is 24 hours. Notice what happens. 98 kind of hung up over the peninsula of Florida. So you folks in the Florida Peninsula, you're going to get rain showers, squally weather, severe weather possible, choppy seas, the resort areas, Disney World, Universal, the big cities along the coast. It's not going to be pleasant. And it doesn't have to be a hurricane to be disruptive. Please keep that in mind. All right? And then you see what's happening. The Euro picking up now on 99L at a fairly low latitude. There's Trinidad and Tobago, and it's about at their latitude right around 10 degrees north, for what it's worth. This is 48 hours out. Look at that. And there's your big high pressure up here, but there's the weakness in the stream flow right there. There's just not enough ridge out over the Atlantic to block this and send it into the Carolinas or keep it even further south, farther south, whatever, and into the Gulf. Just not happening. You can see the way these height lines go. It's almost like contours on a map, and that's exactly what it is. This is a big mountain of air right here. There's another nice sized mountain of air right there. And in between is like a little valley, like a stream, and you see that on topographic maps. And it's almost the same thing in the atmosphere. And this is like a little piece of wood, and off it goes down the stream. Isn't that neat? Come on, man, that is incredible that they are similar. The atmosphere and the true Earth. That's why I'm a geographer. It's very close to being a meteorologist. It's similar, and I'm going to get my butt kicked for this by my wife, but it's similar. Oh, you're going to kill me here. As being an Episcopalian to a Catholic. It's true. That's the only religion I'm ever going to talk, I promise. All right, so there's your religious analogy for today. Topographic map, similar to what we would see in geology or geography, and that's the atmosphere. So there you go. That's 98L at 48 hours out. And then 72 hours out, still, there's your areas of high pressure, blah, blah, blah. There's your stream flow, and away it goes, strengthening as it is there, it looks like. And that's not too far off the coast, far enough away to keep rain and storms away probably, but that will kick up the surf. So, again, surfers, get ready. The rest of you, be careful, especially little kids. I have little kids, so I know. But really, ladies and gentlemen, that's the path it's going to take right through there. Now, this is going to change over time, but it's going to follow that for the most part. Sometimes they get trapped, and high pressure will come out and block one of these, and they come and then they come back in. But not this time, it does appear. There's 99L. It doesn't look like much in the modeling. Remember, if we go back and look at the satellite animation, that is a rather small feature in the atmosphere. and there's no upper air data out there. Remember, it's just satellite based for the most part, so it's difficult for the model to capture it. Just keep that in mind, the global model especially. All right, 96 hours out. That could be a hurricane at that point, point in time. We'll have to see. Close enough to the Outer Banks. Might be some showers if it's closer, but definitely going to send out the wave energy towards the East Coast and the Mid-Atlantic. There's the next system. More energy with that monsoon trough, intertropical convergent zone coming off of Africa. Finally at day 5, that's a hurricane in the model. I mean, to me it is. That's what it says to me. All right, that's my intuition. This just looks like a bean or whatever. Don't worry about that right now. That's 5 days out. Remember, it's like that movie Men in Black, when he's Tommy Lee Jones talking to Will Smith. You know, we knew, 1,500 years ago, that the Earth was the center of the universe, or whatever, and the Earth was flat, and blah, blah, blah. Imagine what you'll know. And what did he say to Will Smith? Something about 15 minutes ago, you knew we were the only ones in the universe or something. I can't remember exactly. But just remember, it's true. A couple days ago, we weren't talking about much. Now, probably going to have 2 hurricanes. That's my gut feeling. So when you look 5 days out, don't take it when something's in the development stages. It's probably not going to do much. You got to be smart about these things. We are getting even further into the development ramp. Okay, there are all kinds of reasons to assume that this will try to develop more than the European is showing it here. All right, and it might not, which would be great news, because it could be heading in the general direction of the islands. It's hard to say, but we need to definitely be watching this closely over the next few days. And you know that I will, that's for sure. All right, let's center me back here so I can get ready to sign off. All right, lengthy as always, but that's the beauty of doing this. I don't have commercials I have to worry about on television, and I don't put commercials on these until much later on after I publish them anyway. Our patrons get first access on Patreon, and then about 15 to 20 minutes later, I make it public, and it's just nice because I don't have to worry about a time limit for the most part, as long as I don't bore you too much with all of my explanations. But I try to be thorough because I want you to kind of get into the same groove that I am. I watch this for a number of reasons. You watch it for whatever reason, the tropics and me. And I want you to learn something at the end of the day, as well as to keep you safe and aware if something were to come your way. All right? So there you go. I am done for now. I will certainly be back throughout the weekend because we got a lot to watch as August marches on. I'll say it one more time. We still have 8 days. 8 days left. That's like having 8 minutes left on the clock and your team's down 12. It ain't over. That's for sure. All right. Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com. As always, thanks for tuning in from whatever device you happen to be doing so from. Have a great weekend. I'll talk to you throughout the next couple of days.